Hi there, it's June the 7th and we're continuing our journey through the book of 1 Kings, and today we are in 1 Kings chapter 2 and coming into just a couple of verses of chapter 3. This is the account of the death of David, the deathbed scene of David, his last words, his last instructions. And his instructions to Solomon are to be strong, to be a man, but also to keep the ways of the Lord in his heart. But David also has a number of scores that he needs to settle and a number of people he wants to show kindness to. So first of all there is Shimei. Shimei was the man of the family of Saul who cursed David when he was leaving Jerusalem at the time of the insurrection of Absalom. And David basically says, I promised I wouldn't kill him, but make sure that you bring retribution on him for what he's done. And then the other one is Joab, who has been the commander to David, but has been responsible for the death of two men who David particularly feels were not worthy of death. Abner, who had been the supporter of the opponent king, and Amasa, who David had taken on as one of his commanders. Both of these were killed by Joab, and so David says he needs to be dealt with for the sake of the blood that he shed. There is also perhaps a suggestion in the background here of Joab as being a political threat because of his previous power and because of his support of Adonjah. And Adonjah himself now makes, David then dies. So David dies and is buried, and we're told that he's reigned for 40 years, 7 in Hebron, 33 in Jerusalem. And Solomon becomes his successor. But Adonjah approaches Bathsheba, who is Solomon's mother, and he asks her a favour. Now it seems a very small thing in a sense that he should be allowed to take to wife Abishag, who was the young woman who ministered to David in his last days, but there's something that we've seen previously. We saw it with Absalom, we're seeing it here with Adonjah and Solomon, that the harem, the women around a king, are seen as belonging to the king, as being part of the right of his succession. And so Solomon, in having Adonjah approach him through Solomon's mother to have Abishag to his wife, sees this as a plot to overthrow him, particularly as Adonjah prefaces his request by saying to Bathsheba, look, I should have been king, I am the older brother, but you know that God's put David on the throne. So Solomon really gets angry about this, and actually he has Adonjah killed because of his temerity to ask for this, and he sees it as a political threat. Not only that, but he also pursues Joab and has him killed while he's still clinging to the horns of the altar, and also he banishes the priest Abiathar, who supported Adonjah's attempt to claim the throne, and he sends him away, and he says he's only sparing him because of the support that he gave to his father David earlier on in the story. Now we can see here that Solomon is doing what his father says. However, with Shimei, the one who cursed David, he gives Shimei a chance, and he basically puts Shimei under house arrest. He has him moved to Jerusalem, and he says, if you leave Jerusalem, then you will die. And Shimei keeps this for a number of years. He stays in Jerusalem, but then 2 of Shimei's slaves run away to Philistia, to the king of Gath, and he pursues them there, leaves Jerusalem, and this is told to Solomon, and Solomon follows up on his threat, and he has Shimei executed. He also replaces Joab, who's been removed, with Benaiah, who was his commander previously, and also he replaces the priest Abiathar with Zadok. So we see here Solomon consolidating his reign, and it says at the end of chapter 2 that Solomon established his kingship. And then at the beginning of chapter 3 we see something taking a rather sad turn, and that is that Solomon takes on an Egyptian princess, and this is going to lead to all sorts of problems in terms of allowing the worship of other gods to come into Jerusalem. And also there's no temple, so people are burning burning offerings on the high places, and the high places, the tops of hills, were kind of they were it was unclear whether they were originally pagan or whether they were really dedicated to the Lord. But it becomes an issue all through the time of the kings that people are not just making their sacrifices in the house of the Lord at the temple, but there's also still sacrifice going on in the high places. One thing it's important to recognize here in these chapters is that the scriptures are recording what has happened. We sometimes can get the idea that the scriptures are there to everything that happens in the scriptures is for to be seen as right, or to be seen as what God wanted, or to be seen as just. We can see a lot of mixed things going on here. There's a lot of violence, there's a lot of paying back, there's a lot of revenge and vengeance, and if we're not careful we start seeing that as being something that God wants. What the scriptures are doing is very much telling what happens, good, bad, warts and all. It's not making value judgments, it's telling the story. And unfortunately we see here there's a mixture of Solomon wanting to follow the Lord, but also there is vengeance, there is political machination, there is a lot of manoeuvring to get himself into position. And we need to remember that we have to do things God's way. We can't resort to making things happen our own way, but it has to be done God's way. And we can see from Solomon's latter choices with taking on the Egyptian princess and allowing worship to continue on the high places that he doesn't always make the best choices. But we are going to see his heart turn to the Lord in the next couple of chapters. Have a very good June 7th.